So first and foremost, of course, I wanted to thank you guys again for volunteering and being willing to do this. We wanted to just take a moment to pause and to have a conversation and to reflect on how the pandemic has affected everybody. I know that we are kind of at the tail end of it now, but I still felt that it was necessary just to go ahead and have a conversation about, what to expect going forward and how things has affected everybody thus far. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kiera Potts and I am the founder of the PottsFoundation. Thank you to our students and our administrators and my board members who are signed on live through Zoom. If you are on Facebook, I ask that you just take a moment to share this on your Facebook, to share the live. And we're just going to jump right in and get started. We're going to go through introductions. So Amaya, I'm going to start with you. Just give us your name, where you are right now as far as school, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Maya. I'm currently at the University of Alabama pursuing my master's degree in speech pathology.
Good deal. Jalen?
I'm Jalen. I'm a junior at Auburn Montgomery University, and I'm majoring in entrepreneurship.
Miss Angel?
Good evening. I'm Angel Lee. I'm the Assistant Director at Alabama A&M University in the Curriculum Services Office.
Miss Cherie?
Good evening. My name is Cherie Herron. I am a licensed professional counselor and owner of Divine Restoration Counseling and Consultation.
And lastly, Mr. Ricks.
Yes, good evening. I'm Mike Ricks. I'm the undergraduate admissions counselor at Virginia Union University.
Good deal. So we're going to, before we get started and we've gone through introductions and everything, we're just going to have a quick word of prayer. I don't want to get ahead of myself and for anybody to think that this is a conversation that I want to have just for me and the sole benefit of me and the organization. I do things, with God in mind and with everything that He has directed me to do in mind. So with that, we're just going to have a quick moment of prayer. So Father God, I thank you for allowing us to come together on today, God. Thank you for just allowing us all to be welcome and open to having this conversation. I pray that this conversation reaches the ears and the individuals who need to hear it, even those who weren't expecting to receive the information that they receive as a result of this conversation. I pray that it is beneficial to each and every person who logs on to this live, whether it be now, whether they watch a replay. I just pray that you just allow something that is said to resonate with them as it pertains to just attending college in this pandemic. May your will go forth right now. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. So Miss Cherie, I am going to mute myself and we're going to jump right in with you. And we're going to talk about self-care as it pertains to college students and mental health for college students, especially in this climate of the pandemic. I think that a lot of us have kind of just carried on with life, just trying to adjust and trying to make it through, but nobody really kind of just took the time to talk about how it affected them and even some things to continue to do better and to progress now that we're kind of moving out of it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I am excited to share with you guys. So I came up with a whole new topic, like literally 3 hours ago. I was going to talk about anxiety, but then something else just kind of tugged at me. So I pivoted and we're going to talk about adjustment. Because with the pandemic and even with kind of people thinking we're coming out of the pandemic, it's all been a moment of transition. And with transition comes having to adjust to new things. And so I thought it would be a little bit more appropriate to talk about adjustment, and then I will share some tips on how to deal with adjustment and transition. So we got 2 college students there. I want you guys to share a little bit about what you adjust.
I know for me, when COVID first hit, I was actually on spring break. And so just adjusting to being back at home for a very long period of time and going back to sharing my space with my family. And that was a really hard transition for me because I'm very independent. I like having my own physical space for my energy and my hobbies and that sort of thing. So that was really hard for me to navigate at first.
Yeah.
For me, I would say just socially on campus, not seeing a lot of new faces, seeing the same people. I played basketball, so I was around my teammates most of the year, but outside of my teammates, I didn't really talk to anybody else or see most of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, whether you've been affected by COVID personally, be it having had COVID or having lost a loved one to COVID, which I've actually had a relative pass away as well. Life in 2020 and so far in 2021, it just looks different from years past, right? Adapting has not been the easiest. And it's taken a little bit of time to just adjust to what life looks like now. You walk out of your car and you still forget your mask sometimes because it's like, oh, dang, I gotta grab that real quick. This pandemic related stress, it's either indirectly or directly just quite a feat. You have to consider our collective senses of reality shot. It's been so unstable over the last year. When COVID first came into public awareness, things just happened all at once. It was like, okay, we're sending you home from work. You're working from home from now on. You can't go to the grocery store. It's like everything just changed so rapidly all at once. Our rhythms got rocked, right? And so things kind of just came to a complete halt, and you didn't really have time to think about it. You just had to adjust. And so that can be a little difficult. It was hard to connect. Your connection shifted, like Jalen mentioned. You really didn't get to see your friends as often as you wanted to. Like Amaya stated, you got sent home from school. That's an adjustment. You don't have your friends there readily available for you to hang out with anymore. All those Zoom calls and FaceTime kind of saved us from isolation a little bit. It's not the same. You kind of miss that need for companionship a little bit. So if you're like me and you have love languages that are quality time and physical touch, struggle bus. You hear me? Struggle bus when you have to be in your house by yourself or not people who changed. Even if you lived on campus, you were pretty much kicked out of your dorms like within a week. Yeah, y'all got to go home. So it's quickly having to pack up your things and just move. If you've never taken an online course before, you never realize how much a discipline taking an online course takes. In a sense, you have to become your own teacher sometimes. You have to set your study times. You have to ensure that you are turning your assignments in on time. And it just requires a little bit more discipline than an in-person class. So all of those things just kind of shifted or transition so quickly like that can just have a profound effect on your mental health. And like Kiera said, I don't think a lot of people really took the time to think about how much of an effect that could have on the health of your mind and your cognition. Some of those stressors, losing a job, starting a new career, losing a loved one, a loss of a relationship, moving to a new place, finding yourself smack dab in the middle of a pandemic. And then, on top of that, having to add race relations to it, all of those things just create a huge amount of stress on you. Most of the time, when it comes to transition, it's pretty short term in nature. Your resiliency kind of kicks in and you learn to adjust accordingly to your new life circumstances. For some people, though, that resiliency doesn't kick in quite as much. They may respond to triggering events just a little bit more disproportionately than others. And what that does is it tends to impinge a little bit more on your daily functioning. So it makes it a little bit harder to go about your day-to-day operations because you have this stress, you have this worry, and you're having this difficulty adjusting. So, as humans, I think that we all kind of want to feel this sense of control. We've got a lot of people that got some control issues. And so, not being in control of your surroundings or kind of not knowing what's going to come next certainly has bearings upon what we need to do, what we have to do, and then just kind of getting our footing. So When we lose that ability to demonstrate that resiliency like that in difficult times, some of us might find ourselves in the midst of some depressive episodes. So you're finding that maybe your mood is not as good as it once was. You're finding yourself spending more time in bed, not motivated, not wanting to do much, or in a constant state of anxiety. So just that constant worry. You may have like racing thoughts going through, fear about going to places or wanting to do things. And honestly, a number of people may experience anxiety and depression at the same time when it comes to transition and adjusting. So I want to give you guys just a few kind of tips about how to adjust appropriately, especially when it comes to the pandemic. So the first one is make a schedule and stick to it. Now, this was a little bit more relevant last year during like the mass quarantine, but it can still be important for those who are working from home still, or still attending school from home. I think there are a lot of schools who are going back to kind of some in-person in the fall, administrators, kind of, yeah. So summer you still may be home, so this may still be relevant for you, or if you're working from home. Staying in the same space for weeks or months at a time, your days just blend together. You don't know Monday from Friday, Thursday from Tuesday. And so when that happens, it's easy to feel like you're just kind of floating through life. And those walls can start just closing down in on you a little bit. And when that happens too, it just makes motivation a little bit hard to come by, right? So a great way to feel a little bit more grounded is to create a daily routine for yourself. This is just being intentional about what you're doing, and it can make you feel a little bit more productive. Now, schedules and routines are a smidgen bit different. If you're not the kind of person who likes to like map out your day, like 11, I'm going to do this, 12, I'm going to do this, that's fine. You may find it helpful to just like write a list of goals to accomplish for that day and then check them off throughout the day. Some people thrive like that. Some people thrive 11, 12, 1. This is what I'm going to do. Whatever schedule or routine works for you, do that and stick with it. 2, get up, get moving. Exercise is a really great mood booster. But to get the best, you really want to make sure. This doesn't mean you have to like go to the gym and do HIIT sessions or lift weights. No, gentle activities like yoga, stretching, walking, those are all known to decrease anxiety and depression. And it just makes you feel a little bit more connected to yourself. Another great way to clear your mind is getting outside. If you are finding that you're inside the majority of the week, I would recommend that you get outside at least once a day. Get 15 minutes sitting on a porch or 15 minutes on a walk outside, getting some fresh air. It just helps kind of calm you and revive you a little bit, okay? 3, self-care. Self-care, 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 self-care. It's so important. You know, when we're not feeling our best, having things to look forward to really can make all of the difference. Practicing self-care comes in handy. Now, self-care is defined as any activity that you do deliberately in order to take care of your emotional and to make sure that you are taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul every day, not just when you're sick. Because what you'll find is that by the time you get to burnout, it's hard to practice self-care. So if you're practicing self-care on a regular basis, it helps prevent you from getting burned out. And it helps you to recognize maybe when you're on the road to burnout a little bit more too. So self-care is not only considering your needs though, it's knowing what you need to do in order to take better care of yourself, because a lot of us do like to take care of others. We do like to make sure that we are giving to others, but we can't give to others if we don't have much to give to ourselves. So the key to kind of living a balanced life, again, is being intentional about your self-care. I like to say self-care is a lifestyle. It's not just an activity. It's something that you are incorporating into your life, that you are doing on a consistent basis. Now, that could be getting massages, manicures, pedicures, eating healthy, getting adequate sleep, spending time with friends, hiking, finding boundaries, learning how to say no to Two people. Does anybody have any issues with that? Yeah, I know. Buying yourself a small present, watching your favorite movie after a long day at work or school, the list goes on and on. But again, the challenge that I have for you is to just ensure that you are spending time in self-care. Again, it's not merely an action or an activity. It is a way and standard of life. Once you realize how deserving you are to have your needs met and your rights honored through self-care, you won't think twice about taking time to enjoy the things that you like. And so when you're finding that things are hard, finding joy can take a little bit of effort, but reinforcing the habit will make a world of difference for you. And then the last one is, if you're finding that you're having a little bit more of a difficult time adjusting to, not only the pandemic, but race relations or any kind of stressor that you are enduring, I really would encourage you to seek support in the form of therapy. Therapy is a great resource when your stress levels are just high. When you start to feel a little lost or you're overwhelmed, just having that person that you can kind of bounce things off of, it just kind of can help you get back on course, make you come back to yourself a little bit more. It can offer some healing for you. There are a lot of therapists who are going back to in-person sessions, but most therapists are offering for sessions, so online care. Most universities have a counseling department. I don't know if students don't realize that, or they don't know, or they just choose not to seek services, but most universities will have a counseling department, and the services are free. You pay for it with your tuition. So seek that help. If you don't feel like you quite need a therapist just yet, or it's something you're not quite sure you want to do, maybe seeking out an online support group or a friend or a family member that you can confide in. If you're finding that you're having trouble coping, though, please understand that you are not alone. There are a lot of people who are struggling still currently, and certainly we're struggling in the midst of the pandemic. So, seek help, talk to a loved one, take care of those you care for, and we will all get through this together. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. I'm finished.
Thank you. Before we move on, Amaya or Jalen, do y'all have any questions for her? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Cherie. Alrighty, so the next piece that we're going to shift into, we're going to get the perspectives of the students on a few different topics. I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and then you can answer as you will, and just be open and be honest, and we're just going to go back and forth through that, okay? Alrighty, so first things first. I know that to rewind a little bit, Amaya and Jalen were two of the first participants and two of the first recipients of scholarships for the PottsFoundation. So to see how you guys have transitioned so far, it makes me proud. I'm glad that you're still doing well. I'm glad that we can come back and circle back around to have this conversation. And I know that when we awarded the scholarships to you guys, you both were very active in various sports and different organizations in high school. So is that something that you've continued throughout college? And how has the pandemic affected your participation in those things?
I'll let you go first and I'll go after
you. Okay. When I first people as quickly as I could and just do everything. But since graduating and now coming to the University of Alabama in the middle of a pandemic, that was no longer an option to get to know people. So I was fortunate enough to be in a program where they provided opportunities for us to get to know each other within the cohort. And so that's kind of how I stayed up to date on my social life through GroupMe. So just staying in contact with my classmates and that sort of thing was kind of how I transitioned during the pandemic.
For me, going into college, I knew that I wouldn't be able to join as many programs and stuff because I was playing basketball and I wouldn't have as much time. And I really wanted to focus on that. But I did join the student athlete committee. So we'll work with the NCAA and we'll get the news that they tell us every week, and we'll go back and tell our team. So we're responsible for telling them all the news and everything that's going on with the new legislation and all that kind of stuff. But since COVID, we've really been just doing Zoom meetings and stuff, and it's not too much different. We just don't have to wake up early in the morning and go to a meeting with everybody there. So it's better for me. But that's really the only program I've been involved in.
Okay, good. So, the flip side of things for COVID for you, Jalen, it made life a little bit easier. You don't have to get up as early. It's not as much in-person contact. Okay, good deal. What about as it relates to navigating online classes? I know that as Cherie was saying, things kind of just came to a halt. So you either had to pack up and leave, you just had to adjust pretty quickly. So what was that like time management wise, just navigating through those online courses, especially if that was something that you had never done before?
For me, I think transitioning to online classes, it was really hard just to remind myself that it's still a college course. I think subconsciously it was automatically like a switch flip, and I was like, oh, this isn't as serious because it was online. And you cannot do that. You don't have room for that in college. Every class is serious. You have to stay on top of everything. And so I think for me, I started keeping a planner. I had scheduled reminders, go to class, log on to Zoom, do your assignments, things like that, just to stay on top of everything.
For the end, all online classes. So the transition was pretty easy because all our teachers, we just did the same thing since we weren't going to class anyways. But doing online classes, it's helped me be more organized for sure. Like before in high school, I never used a planner. I never planned. I just got good grades and went to class. But now I couldn't even survive like a week without a planner. I have written stuff all over it and everything. Like it helps me stay organized. So I think COVID was good for me in that because it got me more organized.
That's a good positive that comes out of it. I think that it kind of, although we all had to learn just how to do life differently, if you weren't organized before, being stuck in your house all day, it made you structure things in a different way to help you become more organized. So it's good to know that you guys adjusted pretty well to that as well. And so, Jalen, for you, because you do play basketball, how did the shutdown, affect your season?
We had a lot of games canceled, so it was a lot of stuff that was up in the air. You're not really knowing when to be ready, but really you just had to be ready at all times. And then we couldn't have fans, or it would be a low population that could come in. So it was really different. It was a difficult season for me just because of everything going on.
Okay, so last question. Has the pandemic affected your ability to keep and to maintain your friendships? What have you done differently to just gather and to hang out with your friends?
For me, I've found that maintaining friendships has become much more intentional during the pandemic. I think before it was just a matter of, oh, we have this class together. I'll see you here. I'll see you there. That sort of thing. And that's kind of how you stayed up to date with everyone. But during the pandemic, you can't rely on that. You can't rely on bumping into each other to maintain those connections. And so you have to be intentional of, I need to check in on this person. I need to see how they're doing. I care about this person. Let me reach out and see if I can help them in any way. So that's how it transitioned for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would add that my list of friends has shrank since then because it's a two-way street. So if you want to get with them, they have to put in the same energy and time, and y'all have to plan. And everything's really just more organized. Like Maya said, you won't just bump into each other like before.
Yeah. Jalen, Mike wanted to know, do you get to keep your eligibility for this year?
We do. Everybody gets a year back.
Good deal. That was something good to know too. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that we haven't covered? I know we kind of were shifting through things rather quickly, but is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss that, in terms of how the pandemic has affected your overall balance with life, with your social life, with your studies, sports, anything else to add? Let me ask you this. I know that because you both are in Alabama, so since the mask mandate has been lifted here, do you feel comfortable going to class with mask, without mask? Would you prefer that everything remains online?
I think that my comfortability with going back to being around larger groups of people just comes from the fact that I'm vaccinated. I think if I wasn't vaccinated yet, I'd still be very hesitant.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Alrighty, administrators, you are now transitioning to the hot seat. But same thing, we are going to go through a couple of different topics, and once we get through those topics, we'll do the same thing at the end. You guys will be able to speak freely on anything else that you have to add to the conversation. So, college admission. Has anything changed? Are the requirements different? Has it kind of slowed down with COVID and people not really knowing, which way to go, left, right, center? Are they comfortable? What have you experienced so far?
I'll let Angel go.
Thanks, Mike. Even though I was thinking you were going to take that question since you're in admissions, but I'd be happy to.
I can. I just, ladies first all the time.
I'd be happy
Jalen
to
set the bar. He set the bar for me, so I had to make sure I follow.
For Alabama A&M, admissions is up. There were some policies that were relaxed as far as fees, and it is up. It's consistent. So not a lot of changes. I think from an administrative aspect, the university had to shift a lot. Adjustment is the best word to define it. Wherever a university was lacking as far as automated processes, I think every university has to have changed a paper process. If there was any paper processes that existed, the adjustment has been made. And I think that universities are moving in the right direction. I think that we were antiquated in some of our processes. And so as far as admissions is concerned, I think the process is becoming a little easier for students. Because I think for COVID, I like to think of it as a national pandemic happened, and there were a lot of deficits that became very apparent in academia. And it caused us to shift. It caused all businesses to shift if they wanted to stay engaged and be able to still deliver their services. So for us, Alabama A&M University has had to make significant adjustments in the way we deliver services and the way we admit, the way we recruit virtually. So those are some of the more global ways we've had to adjust.
Yes, I would say the same for us at Virginia Union. We've been doing a lot of different virtual Zoom calls and stuff as far as trying to recruit kids, but it's kind of been going up as well. But we've been getting a lot of calls and emails. Everybody's by the phone now, so they call in. You get a lot of emails. For us right now, we're taking only major change we have is we waiving application fees. And we also not taking SAT and ACT scores right now. So, and you can get your college application approved with just a self-reported GPA. Now we want you to send in your transcripts, but it will be based off of your final transcript if you don't have your unofficial one when you send it in with your application. That's only been the major change. My phone's been ringing way more than normal, but other than that, that's fine because it keeps me busy. Keeps me in the office answering calls and trying to get these kids into school. So, it's life changing for a lot of kids, to get that acceptance letter. So I've been just trying to stay on my grind to make sure I approve as many kids as possible.
Yeah.
I would like to add that I think that for those students who are still seeking scholarships, while a lot of universities are waiving capacity and a lot of the ACT and SAT tests are being offered virtually, but even though a lot of universities are waiving them, they're still using them as a basis for scholarships.
Agreed.
So I would encourage students not to, and parents not to, even though that university that you're looking at doesn't require it. If you want your student to set themselves apart by being able to compete for presidential or merit scholarships, that's still kind of a benchmark.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
That's a great ad. I think that I knew that the qualification for the ACT and the SAT had changed, but I don't think anybody may have considered how it affects scholarships. So thank you for adding that. We're going to go ahead and kind of jump to the career fair and the interview piece and how that has changed. I know that I did an interview. I've done a couple of interviews now, and they were all telephonic. I didn't have to sit in front of a camera, gratefully, but I know that's not the situation for every single organization that holds the virtual interviews. So how for Alabama A&M, like how are you guys helping and prepping students as it pertains to getting ready for interviews and career fairs and things of that nature?
So I would say that, Sheree, I really appreciated your insight on the word adjustment, because from the administrative staff side, we thought students would be able to adjust more than they have. And so I think that it's really about change. Is it a change that you want to make, or is it a change that you're forced to make? I think that there's an expectation and assumption that for someone who's in their early 20s, who's never known a life without a cell phone, and that FaceTime is their space, video streaming is their space, that students would meet career services and recruiters in that space. Recruiters are definitely highly engaged in recruitment virtually, and I think there's a great divide on students. For us, students are they seem to be camera shy, and so from a recruitment standpoint and from a university standpoint, we're really shocked about them not really being comfortable making that shift. The shift, I think that there was kind of a freeze between March and I would say June, because many of the recruiters did not know if their companies were going to have hiring freezes. They weren't really aware whether or not they would have the budgets to recruit. I think that some of them believed their jobs were on the line as well. But from a recruitment standpoint and working at an HBCU, and because of the Black Lives Matter movement, students who are attending an HBCU right now, the numbers are up. I know that at a predominantly white institution, a lot of them, their numbers for recruitment are down. But for students who are benefiting, who are attending HBCU, the numbers are up. Because larger companies more so are really looking at what their diversity and inclusion plan looks like. And really most larger companies have always had the diversity piece, but not really explored what inclusion means. And so there's really this shift, and there's this high demand now for diversity. And so I always tell students the advantage, there's some limited resources at an HBCU, but recruitment for diversity hires is up more than ever. Our fall career fair tends to have about just under 100 employers. And even though it was virtual for the fall, we had just under 160. So we had 60 more companies add than we traditionally have. The diversity option and the virtual option allows a lot more companies to recruit at Alabama A&M University than we've ever seen. So it's an exciting time for students to find opportunities that they may have thought, well, I really can't get connected with Pfizer. Pfizer was at our fall career fair, and so for our chemistry and our biology majors that were interested in participating in the race for the cure, that's an exciting opportunity for our students. So definitely, yes, most of the recruiters during COVID, they had official policies that they were not going to be doing in-person activities. And so students really had to consider being more engaged virtually than they ever have had. Virtual fairs have existed for a really long time. We've had a lot of companies like Purina, who they decided over 10 years ago that they could recruit at so many more schools and open up the doors for so many other schools to recruit at if they only did virtual fairs. Um, so that was what a year ago looks like for us. And so going into the fall, it's kind of 50-50. Some employers are saying that they want to come back to campus. They feel like student engagement is not where it should be. And that's from a career services standpoint, that's our biggest challenge, is getting students engaged and engaged at their freshman year and not when they're 3 months from graduating, not creating their first resume 3 months before graduation. I think that there's plenty of opportunities for diversity, even though it looks like people are not hiring. There are definitely key positions earmarked for students. Sometimes our students are kind of shy and they think, well, I don't have enough experience. I really encourage students to apply while you're in college, because those positions that people are recruiting for, they know you don't have the experience. They know you don't have the professional experience, but they have earmarked a certain amount of their opportunities for internships, co-ops, and recent grads. And so to me, it really saddens me when I find out a student is graduating without an opportunity. My focus was going to be a little different, but I do think the key word is adjustment. Everybody has had to adjust. Recruiters have had to adjust. Our career centers have had to adjust. I think Alabama A&M, who is an HBCU, I think we're more progressive career center than some of the other HBCUs. When you look at career centers, you can be at an Alabama and they have 30 people on staff. Alabama A&M has 5 on staff. And so sometimes from a student perspective and a recruitment perspective, our resources are limited when you have 5. But the opportunities are so much more bountiful right now. And I really think it's not really COVID, but it's really about the Black Lives Matters movement. I think COVID has allowed for students to have opportunities that they've never had before, because some of the larger companies have been able to shift into internships that are virtual and remote, where a student in the past may have said, oh, I would love to intern with Amazon in Seattle, but I'm not going to be able to afford to find a place or travel. And so the major companies really have shifted, and they shifted pretty quickly. A lot of companies were able to shift their internships pretty much within 2 or 3 months from being an in-person internship to a virtual opportunity, which really, for students that have limited resources and have limited options from their parents, there are just so much more opportunities. And so it breaks our heart when we have the opportunity to hear from an employer and they say, well, your students didn't apply. Did you send out the announcement? And so I was a student who graduated without a job. And it's not a lot of fun to go home and sit and look at your parents after graduation. It's not a good feeling. And I think sometimes there's a barrier. Students seem to think, well, there's so many jobs. I'm on the end of the millennial space. They say there's so many jobs for millennials. And there's a sense of lack of urgency. And so we don't know from a career services side how to motivate students to get them more motivated and engaged. And I know from an HBCU standpoint, at least 30% or more of our students are first generation. So we know that there are so many more barriers with first generation students. not just because of resources, but your parents tell you, go to school, go to school, go to school.
Yeah.
But for a student who's not a first generation, their parents are saying, well, have you joined a club? Have you gotten an internship?
Yeah.
Right.
So for a career services standpoint, there are more parents more engaged than ever in college. When I went away to school, I talked to my mom maybe once or twice a month. Students talk to their parents every day now. And so my advice, if we have parents who are listening, ask your child for their passwords. If you're that engaged, check their email because they're receiving the information. Whether or not it's relevant to them, they're receiving it. I say that because so many parents say, well, can I get the emails? You can get passwords to your children's profile. Most of the universities now have a parent portal, have some way to communicate, but they're not communicating everything that your student gets. So make sure that you're connected. Make sure you're asking your students, what are you doing? Those 4 years, they seem like they last a long time, but they go by so fast. And so even though a student may say when they come to the career fair, there's no one looking for my major. And so some of those majors, you require a little bit more work to figure out what you're going to do with it. We have a lot of students who are in not computer science, criminal justice, or psychology. And they say, well, no one's looking for my major. And so my question to you is what do you want to do with that degree?
Yeah.
Because so that's there's a level of engagement that a student has to do from a career services side. We do have resources available to students to kind of connect them with opportunities that are in line with their major. But there are some majors that are just more in demand. For a STEM student, this is your time.
Yeah, definitely.
In the world, wherever you are, this is your time to shine. Because COVID has required every company to invest more in their technology more than ever before. So the most demand majors are STEM right now. So if you're a student and you are in high school, get connected to STEM. If you're coming to college, STEM is where you're going to find your opportunity. If you're not strong in math and science, there's tutors available, but you have to seek out your own assistance and help. Just like Cherie said about mental health, there are lots of resources available. I'm not strong in math and science, but I'm doing my best. I'm in graduate school myself. And so it is a shift. And so that's my direction about your questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you made some very, very, very valid points. The intent for us and these workshops is to kind of help increase student engagement because there are just things that like you said, those 4 years go by pretty quickly. And you get to those last few months in college and you're kind of like, now what? What am I gonna do? Where do I go? So as we host these workshops, we're gonna do a few more. The whole point and the intent is to help them get better, to better adjust quicker than what I did. Because I mean, I graduated without a job too. And it wasn't because I had to, it's because somewhere along the line, like I stopped looking and stopped preparing. So very, 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 very valid points. Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
back to you for a quick second. Is there anything else that you find would be beneficial for students and for parents as it pertains to the admissions piece for college right now?
I would say, just make sure that your kids are at least applying to a couple of different colleges. As you see, like what's going on in the world, HBCUs are really getting looked at a lot lately. As Jalen probably know, and some of you that's on this call too. If you watch the All-Star game this year, they pretty much had HBCU colleges all through the NBA All-Star weekend. So we're getting a lot of looks. So I would advise them to apply to at least 4 to 6 different colleges so they can at least get some acceptance letters to have the kids to have a good decision they can make between those colleges. You know, like even Deion Sanders out at Jackson State is doing a good job of like giving back to the community. And it's just by him going on his Instagram and doing his social media, just showing you another perspective of how HBCUs operate. And I just think a lot of people are starting to know, well, they noticed us before, but it's starting to get a lot of more recognition now. So I would just have the parents just make sure they go out, make sure the kids are applying, make sure they're looking at the next steps that they might need as far as their immunization records, making sure they're filling out the correct paperwork, getting with their counselors, which is major because some of these kids probably don't even know how to pull their transcripts. So we use a system called Parchment where the counselor can go in there and pull it for them, and it comes directly to us, or it comes to a system where we just can log on and pull those kids unofficial transcripts down. But for me right now, I would just recommend them just apply. A lot of these colleges are waiving these application fees. Try to get as many as possible. I know my son just took the SAT. He's in 11th grade, so I know they were able to put a couple different schools on there that they can send their SAT scores to. We also collaborate with College Black, the Common Black College app. So that's another good source where you can actually just fill out that application and click on multiple schools at one time, and your application will go there. Now we still get calls because some kids don't click on Virginia Union, but they want to know if their application was processed. But we still can pull that information from the Common Black app to get them enrolled into this college. So, like I said, I would just recommend them just go out, try to apply as many as possible, 4 to 6 schools. Give your kid an opportunity to make a decision on what school they want to go to. I had a like right now we're not doing visits, but you can actually sign up online to get it approved to have you come in and do a visit. We had a pop-up visit today. I had a family that was coming from North Carolina driving back to Philly, and she's been trying to get in contact with us about get on the campus just to view it to see how it was. But her being that how she was just wanting to come on campus so much that we just took the initiative amongst ourselves and approved for that family to come on campus just to see how it went. So I would just take that initiative to go around and see the schools. A lot of schools are kind of open. We got 152 freshmen on campus right now, which they're in single rooms. They have TVs on their walls so they could do virtual classes inside their classroom. They don't have to be in the classroom at all. So
That's nice.
we're changing around. Like we made some adjustments, like Miss Cherie said, we made some adjustments for the kids. So that's been pretty major for them, and they can still go to the cafe, get their food, and go back eat outside. They always going to have a mask on. We have a mask on all the time. My particular building where I work at, we work with workforce development. So all the kids that come in, we try to help them out with we got a good team over there that handles that. Try to get them an internship. They got a new program where they have a mentor over there too. So we got people that can help you with doing your resume, help you with trying to interview for jobs and things like that. So we try to help every freshman out when they come in, because when I went to Virginia State, I didn't get a resume till like my end of my junior year. So, it's just good to have people in there that really want to help these kids out. So,
Can I share a missing piece that we find at our university is a lot of times students and parents that apply are a little delayed with filling out their financial aid forms, their FAFSA forms. That's very much a critical piece. Regardless if you're going to accept the award or not, most universities are going to require students to do the FAFSA. And sometimes parents are delayed in assisting or encouraging their student to do the FAFSA because they've not done their taxes.
right.
But when I was in school, it's changed tremendously. You can submit up to the last 2 years. So even if you haven't filed your 2020, you filed your 2018, you can still complete the income tax and income information based on 2 years prior. So that should not be a barrier. I know that when I was in school, I was always waiting for my mom to do that, but that shouldn't be a barrier, but that is a barrier sometimes. And it triggers a lot of other activities as far as housing or getting enrolled in classes. So that's a critical piece that has to be done yearly. for every student. Most universities require that as an admittance piece now.
Mhm.
Good deal. All right. So as we begin to wrap up, from the administrative standpoint, do you have any more advice that you want to give students as it pertains to just returning to college, whether, regardless of what the university may be doing? Do you have any advice to give them? Takeaways.
Sure, I can go first. Alabama A&M is planning on having in-person classes. So that means that we, at this point, are anticipating being fully engaged on campus. Most of our staff and faculty are working remotely. I'm working from home today, but we expect to be back fully in our offices. Just as Auburn indicated, the students from Auburn indicated masks are still going to be required, even though Alabama has decided that that's not a statewide mandate. Alabama A&M students will still be required to wear masks in the fall. So for parents and students, if you're an incoming student, plan to have lots of options for masks. There's just going to be a lot of unknowns. A lot of parents and students ask questions about the fall, and it's just really going to be unknown regardless of what university you attend. Most universities are going to adhere to the CDC guidelines and state guidelines. And as we've seen in the last 6 months, it's changed tremendously week to week. CDC recently released different guidelines for the amount of people who could congregate. So we anticipate in August that there'll be massive changes again with CDC. So expect that we will give you information as quickly as our administrators decide on it, and they're making decisions based on state and CDC guidelines. For parents who are sending their kids away for the first time, a lot of people say, is this our new normal? I think that our new normal is going to be blended. There will be some more engagement activities, probably for most campuses regardless, but there'll be some reduced capacity decisions made, where, you may have been able to congregate and be in at full capacity in a particular location, and they're still going to reduce capacity at times. So parents should plan for that. Students should plan for that. If you're a parent who's went to college, your child's experience will still be different in the fall. And so I think that getting accustomed to being okay with the unknown and getting accustomed to know that what you expected may not socially be available to you. The Alabama A&M University is considered a hybrid flex model, which means that we will be doing in person, but depending on CDC, the state, or our COVID cases, we may go back to online classes again. So those are all different factors that influence what the fall will look like. And it's really unknown. For every student who's listening, you really need to be focused on your email more than ever before, because that is the way that most universities communicate in mass. And so I think it's a great opportunity, though. There are a lot of financial options available because of COVID. So if you are in a situation that you're kind of hesitating about going, there are more financial resources available more than ever before that the federal government has provided for higher education. So it's probably the best time to be in school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, also we definitely paying close attention to our governor to see what's going on as far as CDC guidelines. But we're looking to open up. We actually given the option to have both in person and virtual. You will have to wear masks all the time on campus, like the kids are doing now. So when that starts up, we're going to be having freshmen come back in July this year. So they can move in July, get acquainted with the area, Richmond, also the campus. We are in the heart of Richmond, the capital of Virginia. So we're in downtown Richmond, in the heart of the city. So there's a lot of places you can see around the area, but I would advise you just to make sure you have your mask, have sanitizer. We're going to be giving that stuff out. You can come to Henderson, you can come to admissions office. We'll have that in the office if you don't have any extra sanitizers or masks. Also, we're still taking a couple more new applications. So right now, just letting you know, if you're out there watching, we are giving away $2,000 to freshmen that are coming in to help them out with their tuition, to help them out as far as books, help them out with finding jobs, with the work development as well. So that is still on the table right now. So if you want to get your application in, and most likely it probably come across my hands, make sure I review it. Make sure you send in your unofficial transcript, but we're going to need that official one when you graduate. But like I said, you can do your self-reported GPA on the application, and we will look at that and accept you through that. But we will make sure we get your official transcript when you graduate. And some are May, some are June, so it just depends. But we're looking to have freshmen come in on July, so I look forward to seeing you. You can do, like I said, you can if you're vaccinated, you can have a roommate. If you're not vaccinated, you will have a single room. So just to let you know that.
Speaking of the vaccination, that'll be our last thing that we touch on. And we'll just go, around the room. Maya, you mentioned that you were vaccinated already. So that gives me your answer that you are for the vaccination. But everybody else, like, are you for it or against it? How do you feel about it?
Well, me personally, I was taking a little sit back at first, but I'm around too many kids. Also mentor kids in the Richmond, Chesterfield area. So, it wasn't about me, it's about my family, and it was all about the kids too. So I went on and got my second shot on Wednesday. So my arm is a little sore, but I've been feeling pretty good. Haven't had any headaches and nothing. The first one pretty much put me down a little bit as far as being tired.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I've been feeling good. I just wanted to make sure I was being safe, being cautious around people, because, with my admissions team, we actually are considered essential workers. So we actually been in the office. So we haven't worked from home. I'm sorry, Angel. I wish I did work from home sometimes, but we didn't have that option. We was in the office 6 feet apart, and still accepting kids every day, all day long. But I'm definitely for it. I wasn't for it at first because I wanted to see how it went, but I got to do it for the kids, so that's why I did it.
Understood. Jalen.
For me, at first, I was like Mike. I wasn't really for it. I actually had COVID during the year. I didn't have any symptoms. I felt fine, but they said I tested positive. But I ended up getting a shot also because I figured it would be mandatory here in a little bit, and my mom was hounding me about it. So got it.
Right.
Miss Angel.
I'm team vaccine. I got my second one today. I was a little tired. Didn't know if I was going to make tonight. I want to lay on the floor.
I'm glad you made it.
I have gotten every vaccine that there is that I'm able to get. And so I'm not from Huntsville, Alabama. I am from Kansas City, Missouri. I did go home for Christmas, and my family had mixed emotions. I had a lot of resistance about me traveling and my family allowing me to see them. And so I want to be able to spend time with my loved ones. I have loved ones who are opting not to get it, and I don't ever want to expose my loved ones to it. So I'm just going to do my part.
Yeah. I'm still a little on the fence, and that's just that. But I'm at home and I'm not near anybody. But I am still very much kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this yet. But glad to see that you all are doing well, in spite of, especially since you two have gotten it recently. I know a lot of people who got the second shot, and it kind of just it kicked them, and it kicked them hard. So I'm glad that you both are doing well. I wanted to thank everybody for your time, and to thank you just for participating in this conversation with us. Like I see here. But yeah, thank you guys for your time and for your honesty and your transparency in having this conversation. Your expertise that you've provided has been outstanding. So I'm going to keep the live up on Facebook, and I did record the Zoom. So this won't be, a one and done. They will still have access to the information later. But does anybody have any closing remarks before we go? Is everybody good?
Thanks for inviting me. This has been
Oh,
good.
no problem.
Thank you.
Happy to have you guys. All right. Well, we are going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. We got in and out in a little over an hour, and that was the goal. So, good deal. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye, everybody.